My name's Mallika and I'm an advocate with Sussex Street, and I have been here for a very short time. So I work with individuals living in the surrounding suburbs of the place where I'm living, in this place where I'm working in Belmont, and people all over Metro as well, but finding local places where we can meet up, or they will come into us and we go through all the issues that they're facing and help them find a good solution. But having an advocate doesn't mean you always get what you want. It means you've got someone beside you, and that's what people are missing when they come to us needing support. So I'm way into my career, and this is going back to the basics of being client facing. So I've been a director and I've managed really big teams, where my staff were the ones who were doing that direct client contact, that working with people really directly. And when big issues happened, it would come up to me, more complex issues. So this is an opportunity for me to get back to the work that I probably wanted to do when I was leaving university, and it was being much more engaged with the people who were facing the issues that I may have already dealt with myself, or I've been involved in ways of solving those at the government end or at the service provider end. I think access to legal advice, support and advocacy is something that it's the conundrum of, do I ask for help? Do I look more vulnerable than I already maybe am? Asking for help is not an easy thing for, I think, anyone to do. But when you are constantly having the low expectations of the general population placed upon you for what you can and cannot do in your own life, let alone how you impact the world, asking for support with something that is as basic as the place you live, the money that you earn, the job that you turn up to every day, that those things, it's hard to ask for help around that. And I think that people are reluctant to make that phone call, and sometimes it's someone else in their life who has encouraged them to do so. So it's often at crisis or breaking point when people do reach out for support and are then quite timid in the process. But they're totally entitled to it. We're all entitled to great support. Having a lived experience myself, being a wheelchair user, having been a wheelchair user since I was a child. I had an accident when I was 10 years old, and I've done way sillier things since having my accident. But having a lived experience, going into a space with a person, really provides a level playing field almost. You know, it's that authentic connection, and we're both in the same position. Even if the other person has a different disability, and even if we had the same, like I've got a spinal cord injury, even if the other person had a spinal cord injury, our lives are completely different. There are no two people experiencing the same things, living with disability, or living lives generally, but we are not groupable in that way. But we do share common ground in that our need for access, while our need is the same as everyone else's, actually having it there for us in our lives day to day will look very different. But having that trust, building that trust immediately with someone, I think is easier when there's someone with a lived experience there. And I don't think that having a person who may have a family member, or there may be a parent of someone with a disability, that is still removed from the actual lived experience. That walking in my shoes for laugh's sake is exactly what it means. Is you need to be in that skin to know what that feels like. Having a website that you can go onto and find that this is actually disability specific right here and right now is really important, because it's acknowledging the difference inherent in living with a disability, in being in this life that I also lead by having an NDIS plan myself, which I think also makes for that more authentic connection in the advocacy space that I work in. But having that being othered can also feel like, well, that's actually for everyone. And while you want to be included in the general population, when the issues that you're facing are actually about this population of people with disability and they're really specific, just getting onto a wait list with everyone else can be a matter of life and death. This is about, not just about under the NDIS where we're talking about reasonable and necessary. This is necessary. This is stuff that can end up with people in really abusive situations, in situations of homelessness, and not just homelessness where you are living on the street sleeping rough, but there's access needs that also go with that. Access to places that you can actually lie down on, places where you can tend to your skin, look after yourself in a way that other people who may also be sleeping rough are living in really tough situations. But being on the brink and living with disability is an issue that we are facing, and something like this website will hopefully alleviate more so for people with disability, because they will have instant access to the right support at the time. Having an advocate beside you who is not a family member, for all the best intentions that a family member has, being a citizen advocate and being a family member or a friend, there's always that opportunity for something to slide slightly away from absolutely in the interest of the person with a disability if they are not able to speak for themselves. So having an advocate as doesn't mean that you get the outcome that you are wanting, because what we all want doesn't mean that we all get. But having someone beside you who is independent, who can absolutely be focused on everything that you want without necessarily the history that you have, your medical conditions, how you've experienced the health system, all those things actually are not necessarily important for the advocate to help you face what you need to face next. I do not work in this field to help people. I'm here to, one, role model how you can lead a better life, to provide examples of how people can connect better, and to be there so that people can help themselves, so they can support, so they can actually build their own network of support, so they don't need to come back to us. But if they do, that's okay too, because it's always okay to ask for support. But me personally, I'm not here to help people, I'm here to support people helping themselves. Look, having advocates beside you as you then go and speak with people who can give you legal advice, because they are very separate things, but under the same roof or in the same organisation or within this network of community legal law services and centres is a really great opportunity for people to get what they need all in the one place. Not have to be shopping around, or now I have to go and call another place to get something else met. But having an advocate at the beginning can also be the strategy that reduces a need for legal support and advice, which is really where it escalates. That is about taking it to the next level. It's about just being there beside someone so they can have better conversations, so that they can look after themselves as they're taking on the challenges that they've faced, and take on the people who they feel have either wronged them or the services that aren't providing the right access. Having someone there to take those notes, to provide some of that documentation, to give to those legal, the solicitors, to give to people who are going to provide legal advice, is extremely helpful, because that's the background information that may be needed to take those next steps. But having an advocate can also be the thing that de-escalates, makes everything much easier for the person to face, and doesn't need to go to that next level. My advice would be to think of the things that you've always wanted to do, and not be told by your school, by your teachers, by your parents what they want you to do or what they think is the safest model. Because the safety of what others want for you, especially if you've got a disability, is not as fun. You're supposed to move into share houses that are terrible, and you have arguments with people, and everyone's eating beans for a week. You're supposed to have those bad experiences. You're supposed to have crappy jobs that you would never go back to. You're not supposed to be in that for the rest of your life. You're supposed to be able to work in something. What's that saying, that if you work somewhere you love, you'll never work another day in your life. That old thing. And people say, oh, that's not real. It's not available for me. Well, of course it can be, but you've got to be able to dream it, and you've got to be able to find the people who can help you get as close to that as possible. Because of course that's totally doable. You don't have to love the work that you do. What if it's the colleagues? What if it's the people? What if it's the place the building that you turn up to? It doesn't have to be the actual, the hands-on job that you're doing, but that environment where there's something about it that ticks all those boxes for you is really important. When you're only living out the dreams of the school, of the teachers, of the parents, then you're not living your own, and that ain't good enough. So find the people who believe in your crazy dreams, believe in those wild thoughts that you had about yourself, and want to see you actually thrive, not just be safe and have a place to go to 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Because 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, if anyone just found out from a pandemic and going into an office or a place of work, we all just found out globally that we don't have to do it that way. So if that's the only way that people are behaving now, is that is what equals work, that's what equals value, then they need to have a lesson in what we've all just been through, and remember that we cannot leave people behind just because we opened the door for different ways of working and different ways of being with our friends and family is really important. We othered people before that, and we are othering people now because we've started to move away from the flexibility or the opportunity to do things differently. Everyone during the pandemic, and we are still in a pandemic, everyone understood what it felt like to either be locked down, to be locked in, or to find that your local restaurant or pub or nightclub had closed, and what that felt like. People with disability have been feeling that for years, and no one did anything about it. Now we're feeling it still, because those changes, everyone's just gone back. So those places may still be inaccessible. Those places may still be places where people are locked out of, or not accepted, or feel unwelcome. So we have maintained that othering of our fellow human being, and I think that there were lessons that we could have absolutely taken advantage of through that global environment of dealing with something as devastating as a pandemic. And I think that's something we need to keep reminding ourselves of. The change that I'd like to see from having access to a website like this in a digital platform is, one, the privacy, or the ability to just do it by yourself, to not have to bring others in to ask, who should I talk to? Where should I go? What do I need to do? That this is a place where access to individuals who can talk to you about the resources, or access to the resources as this thing evolves, potential for that to be there, and for an individual to be able to look at it without anyone else is really important. And so to get it to a point as it is improved upon, because everything gets to be improved upon, as it gets to be improved upon with the feedback from users as people start to use it, especially people who may have their decision-making capacity reduced, they may have a developmental disability, they may have a brain injury, that means that their ways of interacting with information and finding information is different from the general population, that they can use it as easily as possible from their hospital bed, from their group home, from the transport that they're in that's taking them from one service to the next, that they can get on something, look it up, and find a way to get out of whatever it is that's making their life terrible, whatever it is that's putting them in crisis, whatever it is that is compromising their health and well-being, that they have an in to find people who can support those dreams, those wild ideas that they had for a better life, which can be completely in conflict with the people who also love them, who may be family and friends, because we're allowed to think very different things. I think having access to that for people with disability, but with all the disabilities. So it's not the toilets and ramps, wheelchair users. It's everyone else as well. Can get in there and find what they need very quickly, or at least get a response from a provider very quickly.